Hey guys, this is Johnny and welcome to episode 39 of the Travel Like a Boss podcast. I'm here today with Ben Finnigan, all the way from Santa Cruz, California.
Hi, Johnny. Thank you for having me on the podcast. I'm a friend and a fan, and definitely really stoked to be on the podcast today.
I'm stoked that you finally made it out to Thailand. Ben has the craziest story on how he basically bootstrapped his business and his life to make it out here. So I got an email from Ben about a month ago, which I'll post up on the show notes of here at episode 39. But basically, Ben was saying that he's now making $1,000 a month from his dropshipping store, and he's spending, how much was your rent and all that stuff back home?
Just bare minimum essentials, like just for food, rent, water, not even paying for car insurance or anything because I rode a bike everywhere. My living expenses in California were about $1,200 to $1,500 per month.
And so Ben was, even though he was making money through his a profitable online store, he was actually going in debt every month just by being in California.
Yeah, so every single month I was accruing, like I said, about $300 to $500 of debt every single month. And I just finished a podcasting and a web design internship and just finished school as well. So I was really in a bad situation in terms of finances. And so although my web design internship was turning into a paid job, I was only going to be making about $10 to $15 per hour starting out. And so it didn't really make sense for me to stick around in California and be buried in debt. So instead, I decided to sell everything and move out here.
And we're going to get to that story in a second because some crazy stuff happened. He ended up buying 3 different plane tickets to get out here. But this kind of shows the dedication. And I remember in the email you said, with the Facebook message, you said that it was after listening to episode 32, which is the one with Devere, the 19-year-old kid, that you decided to finally come out.
Yeah, so listening to Devere was really important for me because he talked about the cost of living being so cheap and how little he was spending on a day-to-day basis. And although you talk to other people on your podcast, episode 32 was really important for me because Devere was someone who wasn't making a ton of money already online. Instead, he was making a few $100s a month, maybe even over $1,000, but he wasn't really killing it online. And so I felt empowered to be able to come out here and bootstrap.
Well, what I like about your story is, even though that seems like a long time ago, I'm looking at the date right now, and that was exactly 2 months ago. So to go from getting rid of all your stuff to moving on here within 2 months, it's still a very fast process, because I'm sure a lot of people listening, if you could say, hey, 2 months from now, you can be out in Thailand, they would think that's a very fast process.
Yeah, and so I'm not necessarily a business success myself yet, but what I can offer your listeners is a story of not necessarily business success, but the perhaps the blueprint for somebody who's thinking about coming out here and bootstrapping. And I listened to that podcast, and the same day I decided this is it. So I posted my car on Craigslist. I sent in my passport to the Thai embassy to get a visa, and I bought a ticket that same day just to make sure that I was committed. And that's a big thing, was when I first brought this up to my immediate circle, my friends, I got a lot of blowback. A lot of people saying that this was a bad choice and coming up with all these reasons why I shouldn't come out here. And now I've been in Thailand. This is my 3rd day. And I've got to say that all those were unfounded.
Yeah, and honestly, from my point of view of sitting here in Thailand, when you said me that when I was talking to you back home, I thought you being back home was the stupidest idea ever, because by making $1,000 online, it's not a lot, right? It's that that's minimum wage back home, but you're able to do that location independently. So by being back in the US and putting money on your credit card every month and having that go up higher, so basically instead of having $1,000 a month in profit, after your rent and your cost of living, just being in California, you're going in debt by $500 a month every month. While in the exact same situation, if you did nothing different, if you still made that exact same $1,000 and you're out here and you're spending $600 you'd be you'd be saving up $400 a month, and you'd have time to build your business, and you'd be surrounded by other entrepreneurs who are doing the same thing. And you said that was a big reason why you wanted to come out, right?
Yeah, and that is actually the main reason why I decided to come out. Back in California, even though I'm in a pretty cool beach town, which is great for people who are into surfing and mountain biking and extracurricular activities, for folks that are interested in starting a business, the startup scene isn't quite developed yet for people that are bootstrapping. And so I was a member of a co-working space, and it was a lot more cutthroat. It seemed like people were after the same piece of pie, and everyone was there with their fork. And so anytime you would share an idea, someone would be there scheming to try to take it away from you. And that's not an environment that was good for me. And so even though it was a great co-working space in terms of facilities, the people there and the mindset of people that are doing a startup back in California is completely different from the people out here.
And what's insane is how many people I meet from California, even from like San Francisco, Silicon Valley area, who leave it to come out here to start an online business. And you would think that would be the mecca for it. But before we get into all that, I actually want to go back 5 years and talk about where we first met, because this is actually a very interesting story on how much our lives change.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, I actually met Johnny a long time ago, back when he was training at Tiger Muay Thai and was running I can't even remember the name of the website's name.
Oh, it's called MyFightCamp.
Oh, MyFightCamp.com. And so, the way that I found Johnny or learned about him was I typed in cost of living in Phuket, Thailand, and I found one of his posts, and I saw his blog, I saw pictures of him, and then when I actually went to go train at Tiger, I saw him, but we didn't actually talk.
So kind of just back up. For those who don't know, for the past 5 years, I've been blogging about how to live as cheap as possible while in Thailand, and I had convinced myself that was the best way to go, is just to lower your bills and live for as cheap as humanly possible. It never even occurred to me I should just make more money. But that was my blog. It's still up now. I still update it like once a month. It's My Fight Camp, and it's mainly about traveling to different Muay Thai gyms around Thailand
and living as cheap as possible. And he was so good at convincing himself that living as cheap as possible was the right thing that I myself thought that it was the right thing to do. And so for the next 2 years, I lived in Thailand as cheap as possible, training at Muay Thai gyms, and through that, Johnny and I actually became friends when we were training at Phuket Top Team together.
Yeah, and I totally forgot about this, because to me, I haven't seen Ben in 4 years now, and even though he's my friend on Facebook, he doesn't ever post anything. So when I saw him again, I was so surprised because he had gained about 40 pounds of muscle.
Yeah, so when I was living in Phuket, and actually before that when I was training and fighting professionally in China, my weight class was 132 pounds, actually 129 pounds, and I walked around at 132 pounds. And so I've actually, since October of this year, so it's been about 8 months, I've gained 40 pounds just through powerlifting. And so the reason why I got into powerlifting was because I ended up tearing my ACL and my MCL completely. I've completely snapped them. And so I was having serious knee issues and walking around with a limp for more than a year. And so after I finished all my rehab, it took about 1 year to get to that point. Then I started powerlifting, and now 8 months later, I've actually have more confidence in my knee joints now than I did pre-injury. And I attribute that 100% to heavy squats, heavy deadlifts, and other exercises that I did in my powerlifting program.
Yeah, and definitely, I like that you're talking. So Ben's about to start another blog about powerlifting. So you can keep in touch with him through the show notes. I'll link that up there once it's up and live. But I firmly believe in these powerlifting type exercises. I got introduced to it through CrossFit, and I know a lot of people have a lot of negative things to say about CrossFit, and I agree. You probably shouldn't deadlift for time. It's a very easy way to hurt your back. But if it wasn't for CrossFit, I never would have even tried deadlifting or tried squatting. I mean, I'm 32 years old, so you would imagine I would have done this by now, especially because I've been going to gym since I was 18. I just never did it, you know? So I'm super glad that CrossFit introduced me to that. And I never want to, you know, a heavy squat for time again. Because, you know, it's definitely an easy way to blow out a vertebrae or something. But it works. I mean, if you look how jacked CrossFit athletes are, they are strong. You know, they are in shape. So it clearly works, but I think there are safer ways to do it.
Yeah. And, you know, the thing about minimizing injuries, it's easy to minimize injuries if you do compound exercises, because all the links in the muscle chain are getting strong together. And so if you're doing like bodybuilding style workouts, or you skip getting a good powerlifting base and go straight to Olympic lifts, it's actually really easy to injure yourself. And you see high injury rates in things like CrossFit because people don't have, you know, 6 months or a year or 2 years of a good foundational base to make sure that all their joints are able to take these dynamic exercise loads and do it for time.
I'm going to share with you guys something that I don't think I've ever told anyone, but when I was young, I was like 18, maybe I was even 17 or something, I got into biohacking, which is kind of the hot new trend now. I didn't realize it at the time. I just remember meeting a guy, some kung fu guy, who had these electrodes where he would put them to his chest, and it was like the Bruce Lee, you know, electricity that would, you know, it's the equivalent of doing 100 push-ups a minute just by sitting there and having it on. So I started just putting it on while I was on AOL in the chat rooms.
Goodness.
So for like 3 hours a day, I'd have these electrodes on, and I never worked out. You know, I did this for like 2 or 3 months, and then one day I went to the gym and I started doing pull-ups. And prior to that, I was able to do maybe 5 pull-ups strict. And all of a sudden, without doing any other exercise, I did 20 pull-ups strict. And then I kept going.
Whoa.
I did 22, then 25, then 27. And on number 29, I fucked up my back.
Oh, goodness.
It was so bad that I knew I had to go home, but I could hardly drive because I was driving a stick shift car. And it was only, you know, half a mile. So it was like a kilometer away. So it was super close. But it was the most painful drive of my life. And I got home and I immediately collapsed. And my dad was like, you know, he wasn't very supportive. He was kind of like, what kind of stupid thing did he do now? And thinking back, it was me trying to be Mr. Shortcut. And I definitely agree that a lot of shortcuts work, but you have to do everything correctly. I mean, you know, that's why it's so important, not just to, you know, to work out one part of your body or to look good or to be able to do something. But now I'm turning 33 in 2 weeks, and all I care about is my health. I mean, when people ask me, you know, what do I do at the gym, or, you know, what's my diet, it's 100% of it is now going to be whatever makes me feel the best, whatever makes me feel healthy, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah. And to go back, actually, when I first met Johnny, he was a professional Muay Thai fighter. He was training twice a day. He was running. He was doing everything right. But just looking at his body, and he just didn't look healthy. And I remember because I'd been a few years into my paleo journey and a few years into my sort of Dave Asprey bulletproof lifestyle, and I remember Johnny actually making fun of me for bringing my own salt and drinking straight coconut oil and having grass-fed butter, all these things that I see him doing now. And it's incredible to look at Johnny because it's been a few years since I've seen him. And so, you know, for folks that probably see him on a daily basis or every few months, it's not a big change. But for me, I wouldn't recognize him.
Wow.
And not just physically, but mentally as well. I mean, it really seems like Johnny's in such a good place mentally, and to be honest, a completely different person. Way more happy, and I think a lot of that has to do with diet.
I think so as well. And what's crazy, so I remember Ben was the first one to introduce me to this way of eating, but at the time it was way too out there. It was like, I actually didn't even know it was called paleo. I don't know back then if you even mentioned the word paleo, I just remember calling it the hippie diet. And I'm like, oh man, this guy's from Santa Cruz. I remember you making, vegetable shakes in the morning.
Yeah.
Which I actually bought some.
Hey.
And, yeah. And I remember how much of a pain in the ass was to clean that filter. And I was like, I would never do this on my own.
Yeah, so that actually leads us to where we were both financially at the time, and we were in very similar places. Johnny and I were both sort of out there in Thailand hustling. And so, he was selling Chia Seeds, and I don't even think he had monetized his blog yet, but he was doing just random things to make a little bit of money. And I remember he had just finished scuba diving his last time, and he was like, I'm never gonna do it again. It was just too much. I can't handle it. And
yes, so the background story on that is, I originally moved to Thailand because I went there on a vacation and I loved scuba diving. I just did it once and I was like, man, this is the best thing in the freaking world. And I was so mad that nobody told me about it earlier. I mean, you had seen it on TV, but it seemed like something that was so out of reach for most people's reality. And when I got there and I did a one-day dive, and I was like, man, this is the best. And I did my open water certification straight away. And I was like, this is awesome. And my instructor, this guy named Rene Christophe, he said to me, he's like, hey, you're a natural. Have you ever thought about being a dive master? And that's when I had the idea to move out to Thailand on a whim and become a professional diver. And so all this is actually in the book. It's called 12 Weeks in Thailand. If you guys haven't read it and you guys are curious, if this story at least sounds interesting to you, this is basically what I've been doing for the last 5 years, how I decided to quit my job, and my journey into both Muay Thai and scuba diving and make my first dollar online. So I really think that if you guys enjoy this podcast, you guys will enjoy that book. But I did scuba diving and I loved it for about a year. And then it became such a stressful, kind of frustrating job. It's hard to describe, it seems, like the life. You're on a beach, you're on an island, and you got to take people underwater. And it is fun. But I guarantee you, even if it's your favorite hobby in the world, but you're forced to do it day in and day out, even on days that you're not feeling well, even though on days that you're sick, you end up hating it. Yeah,
the Johnny that I met was really unhappy, and I think that you were burnt out.
That's the exact word for it.
Yeah, you were just really frustrated and burnt out, and I remember you deciding that fighting professionally was a better option and made more sense than being on a boat and on a beach. And so if that says anything to anyone out there, it was not a good place.
Well, I think, I never really shared this, but one of the big reasons why I decided to try my hand at professional fighting, I'm no means a superstar in fighting. I was okay. I was never that great, but I think it was more a challenge for myself because my entire life prior to that, I had been taking shortcuts my whole life. In school, I'd find the easiest way to pass a test. In at work, I would find the way to slack off and still get not get fired. Even with relationships, literally everything in my life, I would just find a shortcut. And I thought, and I think it stems from my dad being the hardest working guy in the world. But he's an immigrant from Taiwan, and he just worked his butt off his whole life. And I was like, man, I don't want to do that. I want to work smarter. I want to find the easiest way. But because of that, I was at a crossroads where I was like, you know what? My entire life I never worked hard at anything. Let me do something that I cannot talk my way out of. And if anyone's ever been in any kind of fighting competition, any kind of like boxing or jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai, MMA, there's no shortcuts. There's no talking way out of it. If you're in that cage, you're in that ring, and you didn't put in the work, you didn't put in the effort, then it shows.
Yeah. So the Johnny that I met was at that crossroads to where he was starting to work hard, and something that really impressed me was the fact that whenever Johnny fought, for those of you that haven't seen it, anytime Johnny fights, it's actually really impressive because, to be honest, in truth, he's not the most technical, but he's got heart and he has a will that he'll push through. And that's something that really impressed me, and the reason why I'm allowing Johnny into my life as a friend because I respect his ability to push through. And if you watch any of his fights, he just keeps going. I mean, this guy, his volume of punches is incredible. And he's got some hard kicks, but mostly his punches, and he just keeps coming forward. And so he'll fight guys that are way more athletic, way more experienced, way more technically sound, and he goes out there and he keeps fighting. And that's something that's really important. And you know that he puts in the work because whenever you go into that ring, if you didn't cross your T's and dot your I's, you get exposed. And not one time in any of Johnny's fights, none of the ones that I've seen, has he been exposed. And that's a really true sign of good character, is that Johnny's always gone out there, never cowered away, and always kept throwing punches. And that's something that I really appreciate and something that I really respect. As someone that's fought myself, I really, really, really see how rare that is, that somebody will go out there and keep swinging when the chips are down.
Yeah, because, I mean, to be honest, most of those fights, you know, the guys are just better than me. They've had more experience. So in Thailand, it's pretty normal for Thai guys to start when they're really young. They might start when they're like 6 years old or 8 years old. So by the time they're in their 20s, they might have, 30, 40, 50, 60 fights under their belt. And I was walking in with like 2 fights or 3 fights. And even though I was training my butt off, I was training, twice a day. I was running. I was doing all this, crazy stuff, and I was eating, like a low-fat, low-carb diet, thinking that was what was best for me. I was fat. And if you look at any of the fights, I'll link to, I don't really want to link to it because, to be honest, it's kind of a chapter in my life where, I would almost, I don't like looking back on. Yeah. But it's on my YouTube channel. So I'm sure if you just kind of go back and look at some of the videos, you'll see I was super out of shape. I was fat, even though I was training so hard. And, often, most Thai guys aren't that big. So usually they were smaller than me, but they had 40 more fights than me.
Yeah, and 6 packs.
Yeah, and 6 packs. So the only thing I could do is I'm like, I just got to keep moving forward. And every single time I got in the ring, I regretted it. I kept thinking to myself, why am I putting myself through this? This hurts. If anyone's never gotten punched in the face, it hurts, man. Like, it's really a painful thing. But what I liked about it is I knew that I could not back out. I had to keep going forward. And I think that's what has helped me in my business career as well. Let's say even in dropshipping. For the first 2 months, I didn't make a single sale. But I just knew I had to, I was broke, man. I was so, I don't understand. I don't know if people understand how broke I was. I was down to $200 and my laptop had broken. So I had to borrow someone's laptop while building my first store. And at that same time, I fell through a floor and messed up my leg. So I couldn't afford to go to the hospital, even though I needed stitches for it. So I just used Neosporin. I changed my Band-Aids 4 times a day, but I knew this is not good. So my health was bad. I didn't have the tools to even, build a website because I was on a freak. At first I was borrowed someone's tablet, which was way too slow. And luckily, this guy named Cameron, who I hardly even knew, he was just some guy at Punspace, let me borrow his spare laptop. And it was because of kind of what I've been through with Muay Thai that I knew it doesn't matter if all the chips are stacked against me. I have to keep pushing forward until I make it happen.
And it's that mindset that I saw from afar because we actually were in the same place a few years ago financially. And then what happened was I ended up tearing my knee. I went back to the States to get some medical attention. And, 2 or 3 years later, I see Johnny and he posts on Facebook, hey, there's this thing called dropshipping. It works. And because I knew his character and I knew that he was the kind of guy that wouldn't necessarily bullshit you, he's there to just share good, high-quality information and add value to the people around him. That's why I believed in him and I believed in the program. And although I knew that it would take a lot of hard work on the front end, I knew that Johnny and I had sort of similar mentalities in terms of our ability to just push through. And so it took me 3 months, actually. 3 months because I was going to school at the time and doing an internship. It took me 3 months before I got my first sale. I ended up making about a little under $500 my first month. The second month, I ended up making about $680, and then every month for the next few months, I was making over $1,000. And so overall, if you averaged everything up, I've been making $1,000 a month.
You know, and that's, I mean, how many hours were you actually working on it after things were set up?
Oh, 20 minutes a week.
And so the email that you sent me, or the Facebook message you sent me, was, and I saved this because it was so inspiring to me when I read it. And to be honest, before you messaged me, and this was in May, for that month or two before, that was a point where the couple people I knew who had signed up for the course, you know, I just gave up because life had gotten to them. You know, they got busy. Things come up, right? You know. And I was like, you know what? Maybe it's not for everyone. Maybe not everyone can do it. And then when I got your message, I was like, you know what? I didn't hear from you for months before that, so I had no idea what was going on. But after I got your message, and I'll post this up and I'll also read it right now. But this is what kind of gave me the confidence again. Like, you know what? If someone wants to make it work, it works. You
have to want it, and you have to put in the time and the effort and the work on the front end before you get any returns.
Yeah. So the message you sent me was, after receiving your message above, I spent the last few months with my nose to the grindstone, completed 2 internship programs, including podcast and web design. By January of this year, I was able to bring my dropshipping store to $1,000 a month in profit. And though I have all the tools I need to scale my business to the 5K range, I've been stuck at 1K a month due to the extreme cost of living in California and the fact that I'm forced to spend 50 hours a week working a regular job, and I can't spend my time scaling the business. Because of this, I'm never able to get ahead, and I'm actually racking up $500 plus in credit card debt every month. After listening to your podcast this week, I've decided to take the plunge and sell my crap and move to Thailand. You're a rock star. I appreciate everything you've done and shared. See you at Pun Space the next few weeks.
And actually, he didn't add this little bit, but at the bottom I said, "You changed my life, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you." And I really mean that. Like, I certainly wouldn't be out here, and I certainly wouldn't be an online entrepreneur if it weren't for Johnny sharing so much on his blog. And, you know, that's something that I really appreciate and something that I hope to pay forward in the future. And so I'm actually out here bootstrapping. You know, I'm not killing it online. I'm still in the few $100 to $1,000 a month range, but I've just started a website called bootstrappinghq.com, where I'll list, all of my living expenses and all the unexpected costs, and also, give some tips on places to go and things to do you can do on the cheap here in Thailand. And so this is something that I really am passionate about and sharing, because it's a resource that, although Johnny's blog, johnnyfd.com, is a great resource for people that are already sort of making money online, there's a whole missing step there of a few months where there's the struggle. And so, I'm struggling myself. And, if I had a blueprint that someone could show me to say, hey, this is how much you need minimum before you come out here, this is what you can do to get there, and this is how much everything costs, it would make things way easier for me, and I would be out here earlier.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That's the main reason why I wanted to have you on the podcast today, is to show that step, where, I mean, really, it doesn't take that much money. It's great that you have your store set up and you're already making $1,000 a month, because that actually is going to cover all your expenses. Ben just found a super cheap apartment that's in a great location.
Yeah, so I'm actually right next door to the main shopping mall, and there's cheap food all around, and it's right on a main road. And the hotel room, which includes Wi-Fi, refrigerator, TV, hot water, a balcony, a queen-size bed, everything included, only cost me about 4,000 baht, and so that's about $126 per month. And so, for $126 per month, that's what I spend in 2 or 3 days living in California. And so it's the cost of living here is so cheap that it's really shocking. It's especially coming from an expensive place like California, where base minimum expenses, even in a shared house or shared apartment, living as cheap as possible, cooking all your own meals, you're still going to spend $1,500 a month. It's really impressive to see that this month I'll probably doing absolutely everything I want, including office space, motorbike rental, hotel room, food, eating out every single meal. It's only going to cost me probably $750, maybe $800 at the absolute most. So I'm going to record all my expenses and post it online, or actually I'll send Johnny a copy and he can put it in the show notes so you can see what my initial startup expenses are. And you can follow my blog, Bootstrapping HQ, to see absolutely all the expenses and how I get it done on the cheap.
Yeah, and so it's episode 39. So it's travellikeabosspodcast.com, and then just look for episode 39, and we'll make sure we have all that on there. I just took a look at my blog, the Johnny FT blog, and I went back to the first post, and it basically... there's only maybe like 3 or 4 posts of the struggle, because I think at the time I was embarrassed to talk about it. I didn't want to say how broke I was, but you can tell. But if you kind of read between the lines, I get so excited talking about like how I paid. So subtotal for all fixed costs, rent, food, gym membership, 14,600 baht, which is $487 a month, and I was basically that's what I was paying when I wrote that post in April 2013. So actually just a little bit more than a year ago. And then I think I wrote a post about like being super excited that I made $28 or something online one day. So if you do kind of read in between the lines, you can kind of see where I was coming from. But I do appreciate that Ben's gonna just openly write about saying, hey, look, I'm not here trying to pretend I'm cool. I'm not gonna try to impress anyone. I'm here bootstrapping my business and my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my main reason for coming out here, not only the entrepreneurial scene and contacting other entrepreneurs and sharing ideas, but also because what I need to scale my business up to from the $1,000 a month range up to the $5,000 a month range is time. And quite frankly, I don't have enough time in my month to be able to take care of all the tasks that I need to do to scale up. And so I'm going to start hiring. I'm going to start hiring in a few months. I'm going to start hiring staff, and let's say I'm making $1,000 a month. My living expenses are $700 to $800. That's enough to hire a full-time Filipino VA full-time for 40 hours a week for a whole month. And so I'm able to expand my business at double the rate. And I'm able to focus on business development instead of all the day-to-day tasks that I've been spending 60 hours a week doing for the last few months. Now I'm in a place where I'm going to be able to scale up and really take my business to the next level. Of course, I'm not there yet. I'm still in the bootstrapping stage, but in a few months, I'll start scaling up.
What's funny is I actually never really heard of the bootstrapping term until I was out here, and I didn't even realize that's what I was doing. I think it's gotten a lot more popular nowadays, but I think everybody should bootstrap until they have a good amount of success under their belt, because it just makes it happen so much faster. Like, for example, I don't really measure what I spend anymore, because the cost of living is so cheap out here that even if I was stupid about it, I would never spend more than $1,500 a month. It's almost literally, it's impossible unless you're, I don't know, going out buying rounds of drinks for everyone or something. But I go out and I have steak like 5 days a week just because I enjoy it. And, part of the Bulletproof Diet is try to eat as much like grass-fed steak as possible, grass-fed beef. And luckily, local Thai beef is, I think it's all grass-fed. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, you see these little carabao walking around with rings through their noses and eating wild grass. So I'm pretty sure if you eat Thai beef, it's one of those.
Yeah, and so life out here is just cheap enough where the only measurement I actually have, and I wrote about this in my blog the other day, I have a Google Chrome extension called Momentum. And it is the coolest thing. It's basically just a screensaver that every time you open a new tab, instead of it being blank, it shows a cool photo of the day, like a background. It has a nice quote of the day. Actually, let's see what today's is. I'm going to open it up. And it says, "Good morning, Johnny. Dude, sucking at something is the first step to being sort of good at something." And the background is this beautiful mountain range. It's in Robert somewhere in Switzerland. I can't pronounce it. But what's cool is there's a to-do list on the right that you can update for yourself. And then there's a focus of the day. It'll ask you, "Johnny, what is your focus of the day?" And every day I write down the same thing. I write, make $300. Sometimes I write, today is make $300 and enjoy, or some days is make $300 and relax, or make $300 and go to the gym. Right? But every day it's been make $300. And I never actually calculated what that means. To me, it was just a hard goal to make, but it was attainable. All right, it's not impossible, but it's not easy to make. My calculations were, if I make $100 a day, that's $3,000 a month, and that's enough to basically do whatever I want in Thailand. I mean, that's you can basically not only be here, but you can travel, you can save up, you can do other stuff. So that used to be my goal. It used to be make $100 a day, and I think that's a great starting goal for anyone. But as soon as I started hitting that pretty consistently, I was like, well, should I do 150? Should I do 200? And I was like, well, let me just try. Let me just try 300. And I started hitting it. And I've been hitting it pretty consistently. And for a while, I was actually, kind of pushing the limits. And I wrote down one day, I was like, make $500. And that day I hit it. So it's kind of a weird thing where, it's not that this app gives you magic powers, but it puts your intention in the world. And I really, really believe in this hippie BS of putting your intention in the world, because it has worked. I mean, it's insane, but this stuff works. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. Certainly the biggest deciding factor for me attaining my goals was writing them down. And, I had lots of pressure from people around me telling me, write down your goals. Johnny's saying, write down your goals. And it took me a few months before I actually did it. But now I'm sold, because writing down your goals list and then reading it every morning, first thing when you wake up, you get so much more done. And I actually don't have this app yet, but I'm going to download it. It looks fantastic. I'm looking at it right now, and Johnny's goals list, as well as his to-do list for the day, definitely inspiring.
Yeah, and that's really the biggest change I've made, is just waking up in the morning and filling out what I want to do today and what my goal is for the day. And I sat down and actually did the calculation. And if you make $300 a day, especially if you make it through your online kind of passive business, semi-passive business, like at least location independent business, that means you're making $100,000 a year. That's a six-figure income. And that's not a six-figure income back in the US, where half of it is taxes and then the other half is your expenses. So you end up with nothing.
No, instead you get to bank it all.
Yeah. And I mean, imagine this. You're making $100,000 a year, but your expenses, your rent for the entire year is $1,000. I mean, and that's basically that's basically what you're paying, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I were to pay a whole year in advance, let's see, it would certainly be no more than $1,500, and that's including any upgrades or any other expenses that might come up, like new bed sheets and stuff like that. Johnny just did the math. It's actually $1,300 for an entire year, which is pretty incredible. I must say that's actually less than the rent of my condo back. My 2-bedroom condo back in Santa Cruz. So that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and the nice thing about that is you can kind of just keep that place. So when you do travel, it's cheap enough for you to just leave it. So I'm getting ready to go Europe for a month or two, and I'm just going to keep my room because I'm only paying $210, I believe, a month for it. So it's, to me, it's just worth having a place to call my own, to keep my stuff, and have a place to come back to. And, it's one of those things where I'm, if somebody happens to want to live in it for the next 2 months, I might let them just use it, or depending on who it is, Yeah. But it's cheap enough where you can do that. Back home, man, if you went on on vacation and you're still spending $1,500 a month on your rent, it's stupid because you're just leaving it empty.
Yeah, and that's a big difference that I notice here compared with California, is that because of the low cost of living, it seems like, I don't know how to say this, but it seems like everyone back in the States is depressed. And coming out here, there's so many smiles on people's faces, far fewer arguments or folks giving dirty looks. And it's something that I've noticed here is that there's definitely a sense of goodwill between everyone, which you don't necessarily get back in the States. It's a little more cutthroat. And here, there's a lot less, it seems like there's a lot less depression, lots more smiles on people's faces. And, I was in San Francisco and Santa Cruz. And even though those are really cool places in the States, considered some of the best cities in terms of, quality of life and the overall well-being of the people, it's not a comparison. Coming out here, it's like everybody's on antidepressants just naturally. It's sunny all the time. It's nice and warm, and you never have to wear two sweatshirts because it's foggy. Everything's really nice, and the people reflect that.
When I lived back in the U.S., I lived in San Francisco for the first 19 years, and I lived down in Orange County, L.A., San Diego for the next 8 years or so. So, two of the best places in California, maybe in the U.S., maybe even in the world, depending on who you ask. But I was constantly, going through unhappy stages. My entire life, I would say my entire adult life, I would go through the stages where I would just be depressed for no real reason. It would just happen. And it doesn't happen very often now, but once in a while, so once every few months, I get a day where I just don't, I just don't feel nice. I just feel like a little bit down, and there's not really any reason for it. And I know that is a day where I'm feeling down is because when I start refreshing my Facebook feed, hoping for another update or seeing what's going on and almost looking for bad news or kind of just, wallowing, And the good thing about it is now I'm just let me shut down my laptop, let me go for a walk, and it's sunny and it's nice out. And I really don't have any stress out here. And literally within a day, it's completely gone, and I feel great the next day. While back in the US, that could last a month or longer. And, for no reason. So if anyone, ever kind of goes through something like that, I mean, part of it, I'm sure, is also diet and exercise. So I do want to talk a little bit more about that right after this, since I have you here. But a lot of it's just the lifestyle. And there's a lot of things I forgot about back in the U.S. that stress people out. Things like parking, getting tickets, paying meters. People stress about this stuff. And I haven't had to do any of that in 5 years being out here.
Actually, another thing that adds a lot of stress is food. And one thing that I noticed back in the States is that it costs so much to eat out that most people, they eat out once or twice a week, but then the rest of the times they're making food. When you're making food, it's not just the investment of time that it actually takes to prepare, but you actually have to go to the store, drive to the store, walk around, bump into people, grab stuff off the shelves, come home, prepare everything or prep everything, and then cook. And so you end up spending probably, 10 hours of your week cooking food. And when you're out here, you don't necessarily have to do that.
And cleaning up.
Yeah, cleaning up. And, actually you'll spend probably 15 hours a week with prep, cooking, and shopping. And that's 15 hours extra a week that you can spend working on your stores, building a new site, building a new blog, or just vacationing.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about diet. So Ben was actually the first person I've ever met who ate kind of this paleo lifestyle, this bulletproof lifestyle. And at the time, I wish I knew more about it, or I wish I was more ready for it. But at the same time, it was very extreme, the way that you ate at the time. I remember you cooking a meal for me, and I thank you for that. And I remember it just being a plate with a couple pieces of vegetable, a little tiny portion of meat, a little tiny piece of this. And I ate it and thinking, I was like, man, I can't live off of this. But I do remember you're the first one to ever mention the word inflammation. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I had no idea what that was. I never even heard of the term. And my solution to that was to take ibuprofen every day.
Oh, no.
Which is the worst thing you could do. I threw away 2 bottles of ibuprofen. I actually came here with 2 Costco-sized bottles of it.
Oh, my goodness.
Like 700 count each.
Oh, my goodness.
And I threw them away just because I don't want them in my house. And it's such a stupid thing for me, but I think a lot of people do this, is we hear, oh, okay, yeah, you need more vitamin whatever, or you need more whatever. Like, oh, what's the easiest way? Let me take a pill for it. But until you get your diet and exercise and sleep in order, none of that stuff matters. So for the past 4 months, I haven't taken any supplements at all. I literally I threw away all my vitamins, got rid of everything. And just actually last 2 days, I started taking some fish oil, some vitamin D, and that's really it. I don't take a multivitamin anymore. But my diet and everything is so good here that you don't need it.
Yeah, so it's funny that you mentioned how strict I was in the past, because I'm not nearly as strict now. In the past, I was dealing with, well, actually, here, let me go way back. So the reason why I got interested in diet was because when I was 8 years old, my family, we were camping out on Long Island, and I ended up getting bit by a tick. And we didn't really think anything of it, and then I developed this big bullseye rash. It was like a bright red center, and then, regular skin, and then another big bright red circle around it. And we took my arm to the park ranger, and he pointed to a sign that said, "You might have Lyme's disease." And the park ranger said, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal." And I didn't think anything of it until I was 16, and I was living in China, training and fighting Sanshou, which is a style of kickboxing out there. And I ended up breaking my arm, and I also hurt one of my knees in a fight. And it brought my immune system down low enough that I ended up losing about 40 pounds of muscle and got really, really sick over the course of just 2 or 3 months. And so I was really, really in a bad spot. I ended up calling my parents and saying, "Hey, these are my symptoms. The doctors here don't know anything about it. They say that they can't find anything wrong with me." My dad, this is when Google just started. He put the symptoms into Google, and it came back with Lyme's disease. And he was like, "Oh, wait a second. Remember when we were on Long Island and you got that bite mark? You might have Lyme's." So I ended up flying back to the States. I got tested the same day I arrived. I was basically on death's door. And it turns out I had Lyme's. And so what happened was my immune system was so strong as a kid that it's just stayed in remission until I was 16. And then when I was 16, my immune system got so low that Lyme's came out. And so I ended up doing all the conventional, I went the entire conventional medicine route at the time. I got a PICC line, which is a 2-foot-long tube that goes from your arm, goes inside the vein and goes straight to your heart. And so you can get injections of either painkillers, chemotherapy, or antibiotics. And so I was taking a mix of everything. And at the time, they were giving me extremely high doses of liquid antibiotics and chemotherapy and all sorts of other stuff that was not just wrecking my immune system, but killing all the good flora and fauna in my gut. And that's one thing that really, really, really messed me up for a couple years was the damage that taking high doses of antibiotics did to my gut health. And so I ended up over the course of 6 months getting sicker and sicker and sicker, even though I was doing all the quote unquote right things according to Western medicine. And so what happened was I decided one day enough was enough. Like, I'm going to die if I continue doing this. And so I just started listening to my body and eating a vegetable heavy, high fat diet. And, this was back in 2006. So this was, actually it was actually before that. This was actually way back in 2004. And so I ended up going on this modified paleo diet before Google was around for me to really like research and learn about it. And so I just did it naturally, and it basically cured me. It's now been about 4 years since I've had any symptoms, and I could take a blood test right now and Lyme's wouldn't show up. And so Lyme's is considered an uncurable disease, a bloodborne illness that is uncurable and will stick with you for life. But I feel, just through my own personal experience, that correct diet, exercise, and living a holistic grass-fed lifestyle is really the way to go for optimal health.
All right. Dude, that's so cool that, I mean, you basically cured Lyme disease. And I do believe that if you break your leg or something, go to the hospital, all right? But if your leg breaks every single month for the next 5 months, you know, there's something else wrong.
Well,
right?
Western medicine is fantastic at curing trauma. So if you have a broken leg, they can fix you up and throw you out the door. But something that it's not good at is preventing disease. And most diseases, in my opinion, and most illnesses, and most things that are considered genetic diseases can actually be cured or prevented through diet. Because, you know, if you look at your body, every single cell in your body is made up through what you ingest. And so basically everything you eat is the building block or the raw materials that your body uses to build your body. And so your immune system, the bacteria that are living in your gut, your skin, your muscle, your brain, everything is made up of what you eat. And so if you're injecting yourself with sorry to be frank, but crap, you're going to have crap building blocks.
Well, here's the thing is, you know, a lot of people, they make fun of me because I try to only eat grass-fed beef, butter, all this stuff. And they're like, oh, you know, that's some hippie stuff. But think about it. All beef used to be grass-fed. All right. All butter used to be grass-fed. All butter used to be butter. There used to be no such thing as margarine, no such thing as canola oil or some, vegetable oil even. The only thing that we're doing is we're just going back and eating like real food. And that's really it. I mean, when it breaks down to it, is just eat real food. A great guide for it is just go look up Dave Asprey, the Bulletproof Executive, the Bulletproof Diet. We both follow I know I follow Bulletproof Diet, and you follow something very similar to that, right?
Yeah, actually, I do something similar, although I'm focusing more now on incorporating a lot more vegetables. And I know that Dave Asprey says, eat vegetables just when you feel like it. But since I went full bulletproof, I think just for my own body chemistry, eating vegetables is really important for me.
I think so as well. Actually, I'm glad you mentioned that. I eat a crap load of vegetables. So my normal diet is breakfast, bulletproof coffee, lunch, veggies, eggs, and a little bit of meat. And then dinner, 5 days a week, I have a small grass-fed steak. I would say it's less than 8 ounces. I don't know what it is out here. Probably, yeah, it's definitely less than 8 ounces. But I only go to places that have either an all-you-can-eat salad bar, and I have like 2 or 3 big salads, or I'll just order a big salad on the side. So that's basically my diet. So lots of fat, lots of vegetables at night, and then some meat.
Yeah, I've actually, since I started powerlifting, my body has been craving more energy, and so I've started incorporating a lot more carbohydrates. And so, some people put down carbohydrates, but I've been noticing really good muscle gains and also mental clarity after so many years of a strict paleo diet. Just the past few months, even though I've certainly gained body fat, I've also gained a lot of mass and also feel much more mentally clear because I've added carbohydrates in. Of course, I'm not going crazy with it, but I add lots of fat with my carbohydrates so it processes slower, And just make sure that I'm eating like a sweet potato or a regular white potato with lots and lots of butter, lots and lots of coconut oil, and I'll even have white rice as long as I add lots of coconut oil with it.
And that sounds like it tastes good as well.
Yeah, certainly very delicious. And it's important to note that when you're eating carbohydrates, have lots of fat with it, maybe some salt with it as well. And the reason why is because the fat allows the carbohydrates, the energy trapped in the carbohydrates, to process slower and be more time released. And if you add salt as well, it helps you to regulate your hormones and make sure that your insulin doesn't spike and get out of control. And so just make sure that you have lots and lots of fat anytime that you have carbohydrates.
So I like this. Once a week, I've been having sweet potatoes with white rice as well, just to kind of. I really believe that you can't do anything too strictly, or you kind of need a balance in life. So for me, once a week, rice or sweet potatoes, lots of fat. I'm also coconut oil and grass-fed butter. So it seems like we're kind of on the same track, and we're gonna be the same weight very soon, which is very funny.
Yeah. So I'm only 5'4", and so I'm really trying to maximize my genetic potential. I've been a combat athlete my entire life, and I've been doing jiu-jitsu, doing kickboxing, and
so Ben actually won the U.S. Open in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu last year.
Actually, 2 years ago, before I got my knee injury. Okay. And then I competed at the Gracie World Championships, which is a submission-only competition, and ended up getting second place.
So high-level guy. I like it.
Yeah. And so my goal is not to be the most aesthetically pleasing guy, but instead be really strong and sports specific. And so I'm really interested in overall health. I'm not trying to be a bodybuilder. Instead, I'm trying to be a power lifter and somebody that has overall strength that's directly translatable to athletic performance.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. I'm kind of in the same boat where I just want to be healthy, but I wouldn't mind looking good as well while being healthy. But no longer is it about getting the best times or getting the best lifting the most amount of weight. It's all specific to what I get out of it.
Yeah, and I think you'll just naturally be aesthetically appealing if you're healthy.
Yeah.
And that's what's really important.
So get on that, guys.
Yeah. And actually, I'm only 170 pounds right now. I started at 132 pounds in October. And so it's been 8 months and I've gained 40 pounds. I expect to gain 30 more pounds and go all the way up to 200.
And I'm at 199 today.
So I'm going to add more carbs to my diet, add a lot more fat to my diet, and try to go up a few hundred calories every day until I get to 200 pounds. And then once I hit 200 pounds, I'm going to cut down and be hopefully a ripped 170.
Okay, I like it. I think I'm going to stick around 185 or so and just be like a ripped 185. I'd be happy with that.
You're looking good right now. I've got to say,
that.
Even when Johnny was working out twice a day and was really a professional athlete, he's never been in better shape. And I attribute all of that to diet and being intelligent about exercise.
So yeah, keep following the blogs because I talk about it once in a while. I know most of you guys are following because of the travel and the business entrepreneurship, but I really think it all comes hand in hand. And I've been doing a new experiment. I'm not going to talk about it just yet because I like to make sure things work before I start getting hundreds of people that are listening to start doing it as well. But for the last couple of days, I've been experimenting with something, basically to change my diet a little bit for breakfast and lunch. So I have energy the whole day, and it's been working. I've been having the 3 most productive days of my life, working 7 to 4 without the crash, without feeling tired. So I'm going to write a blog post about that in the next few weeks. So kind of keep an eye out for that. That's about it, right? Anything you want to throw in there?
If anyone's interested in getting more information about sort of this grass-fed lifestyle, I'm starting a podcast called Grass-Fed Lifestyle Podcast, and you can find that at grassfedlifestylepodcast.com. You can also follow the entire grass-fed journey and get tons of free information on the grass-fed lifestyle from the grassfedlifestyle.com.
Okay, awesome. And if they want to follow your bootstrapping HQ site?
Then if you want to follow my bootstrapping journey and are interested in the real cost of living and the real struggles and triumphs of someone coming out to Thailand and bootstrapping their business, you can get all that information at bootstrappinghq.com.
Okay, cool. And if you guys want to sign up for the same dropshipping course that both me and Ben did, it's antonmethod.com. And I'm pleased to announce that I just became a Shopify partner. So I'm allowed to give you guys all 20% off your Shopify plans for life. I don't have a link for it yet, but it's on my blog, johnnyfd.com. And I'll make sure I have a link to it here on the show notes as well. So if you just go to travellikeabosspodcast.com under recommended resources, I'll throw that up there. And I think it's super cool that they reached out to me and basically said, hey, do you want to give a special discount to all your listeners? So thank you guys all for all of your support. Ben, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been great seeing you again. And we're going to be seeing a lot of each other. So it's both out here in Chiang Mai. I want to give a quick shout out to everyone who's left 5-star reviews on the iTunes store. You guys are the ones that basically spread the word and make it easier for other people to find this podcast. So thank you so much for recommending it to your friends and family. Even people that just share it on their Facebook wall, just tell a friend about it.
And I'd actually like to thank everybody that have supported me in my journey as well. And, even though I'm just starting my bootstrapping journey, there's been a lot of struggle previous to this of me trying to deal with the mental leap from somebody that works for a living to somebody that builds their own business. And so big shout out to my friends, family, and everybody in Santa Cruz.
Nice. So Money Free, the most down-to-earth, inspiring, and entertaining podcast. What's it say? Johnny tells it as it is, and I highly recommend checking out his podcast out because not only is it inspiring, but entertaining at the same time. Jensen Drew says, awesome. This podcast is awesome. Not only does Johnny give the tips and advice on becoming a successful entrepreneur, he also gives you great tips and advice on travel and a variety of other things, not to mention some good stories. Highly recommended. And last but not least, M. Afrin. Hi, Johnny. For some reason, his last message got deleted. So he's in Anton's course as well. And he says, your T-Lab podcast keeps me motivated in the mornings as I commute to work. It gives me the belief that it's not only possible to escape the shackles of corporate America. I like the episode, and it provided the Fulfillment by Amazon episode I think he's talking about. Not only did it provide FBA as a business model compared to dropshipping, but I think it's the next natural step I feel dropshippers can take on to build their own brand, yet maintain the no inventory thing. Anyway, keep up the good work. So thank you guys so much. Keep in touch. My blog is johnnyfd.com. Go to travellikeabosspodcast.com and check out all the stuff in the show notes. I'm going to link up to all of Ben's stuff as well as a few other little goodies for you. So peace out, guys, and see you guys next week. Thank you for listening to the Travel Like a Boss podcast. If you want to hear more, including the bonus, How to Choose the Perfect Niche episode, join our mailing list at travellikeabosspodcast.com. See you next week, and remember, if you want to travel like a boss, you need to be your own boss. So start your online business today and start living the lifestyle you've always dreamed of.